Welcome. You're here today because you're a ghostwriter and you're looking for help. And I have help for you. My name's Matthew Pollard and I am the Rapid Growth Guy. I want to share with you a story today about Derek Lewis, a ghostwriter client of mine that called me in October of 2014. In 2013, he'd earned $27,000 for the year. In October of 2014, when he discovered an article that I wrote about niche marketing in Entrepreneur, he'd earned $12,000 for the entire year, scraping by on little odd jobs, $500 here, $1,000 there, really just struggling to survive. His wife was looking at him saying, "You need to go out and get a real job." And he was so grateful to the fact that she had health insurance and a good job that paid the bills. But he struggled to contribute. He felt horrible that he couldn't. So every little job allowed him to pay a bill here and a bill there. But it wasn't the answer, and he was desperately scouring the internet for a solution. Like so many of us do, when our business isn't working, we're hoping to find that silver bullet that's going to save our business. And eventually we all gravitate to one, and we have to hope, spend money, and trust that it's going to be the answer for us. Now, for many of us, we find the wrong solution, and it just puts us further in that hole. We might speak to an SEO specialist that maybe hasn't researched in 10 years about SEO, but still does it as a business and is failing and struggling to find clients himself, though he wouldn't tell you. And we trust them, and then 5 months down the track, we've spent $25,000 and had no result. Or we may speak to a person that specializes in podcasts, and they talk to us about how to launch a podcast. Next thing we know, we've got 100 episodes of podcasts and still no clients, but now we've got a full-time job doing something that we didn't even want to do in the first place. Luckily enough, Derek called me instead. And he came to me and said, "Matt, I have a niche marketing problem. I know that there's a market that's willing and can afford my services, but I can't figure out what it is and I need your help." After talking to Derek for a short period of time, we discovered very quickly that he had small numbers of customers emailing him about his services. And emails would go up and back, up and back, up and back, until eventually they asked one question. You guessed it. It was price. And then all of a sudden, the email trail would stop. Or they would say, "I'm not really willing to spend that much money. Could you just do this element and this element and this element? My budget's $500. My budget's $1,000. He would get so frustrated. And he made the decision that what he was going to do instead is he was going to put a price on his website. Because after all, he didn't want these people that were wasting his time and were taking several hours in email dialogue to contact him all the time. But now the problem got worse. Now he had no customers. And I said to Derek, what do you think these people's main problem are? These people want ghostwriting services. And then I said to him, "Derek, is it fair to assume these people probably don't like writing that much?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I guess that's fair." And I said, "And you're trying to communicate with them via email. You're trying to communicate in the style that suits you, not the style that suits the customer." So I suggested to him that he do one simple thing. When somebody inquired, he sent one email. And the email would read, let's call the customer John. "John, I'm so excited that you reached out to me. I actually just looked at your website and I'm ecstatic about the products and services and the things that you do. I think it's amazing. I just worked with a customer very similar to you and they're so ecstatic with the results. So I know we're going to be an ideal fit. But what I love to do is I like to get on a call just to make sure that we're going to have a great working relationship, because something as personal as writing your book we need to make sure that we're completely comfortable with each other. And then on top of that, I need to ask a few more questions just to make sure that the price that I give you is exactly around the scope of what you're looking for." Below is a link to my scheduling app so that you can book in directly with my calendar. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Cheers, Derek Lewis. As soon as Derek sent that email, his very first phone call resulted in a $40,000 sale. Within 7 weeks, he'd made $80,000 with his second sale. And by the end of the year, he'd made $120,000. That was in less than 4 months from picking up the phone and contacting me. Now, of course, getting them on the phone was only half of the job. The next thing that we had to do was get them to understand the true value of Derek Lewis. I mean, realistically, any person that he spoke to were evaluating the $2,000 ghostwriter that they saw on Craigslist, the person that said they can write a book on Fiverr.com, and all the other people that say they are ghostwriters. Because let's face it, everybody says when they want to be a ghostwriter that they're a ghostwriter. They fit into this one specific box. So Derek needed them to understand the difference between what he did and what everyone did. And we did that in two ways. The first is we needed to separate him from everybody else. We needed to look at what made him uniquely different. And Derek had this unbelievable way of taking a business person that had this unbelievably complicated structure that their business modality was and making it simple. And then structuring it in a book, the 12 chapters, so that when that person put the book down, they knew one thing about that person, that they were the absolute authority on this specific topic. This one thing they were the go-to person for. So we called Derek the authority architect. Once I gave that name to Derek, all of a sudden he started telling me stories about as he was going through school, he actually almost became an architect, and how he really loved design, and how he breaks down, and he calls it the Frankendraft, where he breaks down the whole person's modality into a simple structure so that when he's writing the chapters, all of a sudden people understand the true value that he provides. Every single person has a different process based on different experiences they've had, different upbringings, different education. We all have our own unique process, and we have to label it. And for Derek, we labeled it authority architecture. But then when we were speaking to the customer, we had to go one step further. We could have told him that we had this process and the value it provides, but then they have to choose whether or not they believe us or not. So we need a sales process, a series of steps, and the most powerful element of that is the power of story. See, when I tell you facts about my service and why it's so fantastic, you can choose whether to believe it or not. And your logical mind, it's been told a lot of things. It's very quick to be critical and say, no, that's not the right thing. Or no, that's not really true. Or I bet that's, kind of embellished a little bit. But the emotional mind, it loves stories. And as soon as it hears a story, it goes story time, and it wants to listen. And it will listen right through to the end before it even re-engages the logical mind. See, the great thing about the power of a story is it actually short-circuits the logical mind. As soon as the emotional mind hears a story, the logical mind, it just switches off. I mean, you think about it. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. For us to believe that story, we have to believe that bears really have beds and eat porridge. But we don't think of those things. We love the story, and we listen, and we assume all of the things in the story as fact. And they just sink in. And it excites the customer because people buy emotionally, and then they ratify logically. So a great story has all of the embedded logic put inside it, specifically designed to tell the customer that they need to buy off you. So when you get to the end of the story, the person is absolutely ecstatic and they want to move forward. But once they agree to move forward, then they don't wake up tomorrow and go, oh my gosh, what have I done? They know exactly why they bought. And they're happy with the fact that they're moving forward. The next thing we did for Derek Lewis is we looked at his pricing. What he would do is he would have these emails up and back, and then he would do these amazing custom quotes. Massive proposals for these people to explain. I mean, these people were spending $40,000 on a ghostwriting book. Well, before he met me, they were spending 20, or hopefully at least 20. But by the time we were finished, they were charging up to $75,000 is what he's charging right now. I mean, last year he made just shy of $300,000. And they wanted to know exactly what they were getting. So Derek felt that it was incredibly valuable to share all the details, the technical mumbo-jumbo of the things that he was going to do for them. But you think about it. When you bought your last cell phone, did you really care about half the things the person told you? No, you just cared about the outcome. And you probably really enjoyed the commercial that talked about the fact that really fancy people are walking around with that phone. Or when you bought your last laptop, you probably bought it because of the way it made you feel, not because of the RAM and the hard drive and all the different technicalities. Maybe you needed enough space, but that was an outcome you were looking for. But Derek got bogged down in all of the proposal-based elements that he thought they cared about. as opposed to what they actually cared about. What they actually cared about was the value, and they'd already heard that. They had a story. So we didn't need to go into the technical details, and we didn't need to break down the prices, and we didn't need to really focus on all the elements that people would then want to negotiate and say, well, I don't really need this bit, and I don't really need this bit. And all of a sudden, we start negotiating down the price. He had 3 packages, 3 simple packages. The first one was a very simple structure around how to teach them how to write a ghost-written book themselves. The second one was that he would write the book for them, and he had this great structure and how he did it, and he would coach them through the process of really working out how to simplify their modality. And the third one would have all of these little other things, like creating a website for the book so that when it launches, it helps. He would then help them find a literary agent, all these different elements that added huge extra value. But he had 3 packages, and he said, well, based on what I believe your needs are, if your budget is there, I think we should go for package 2. Statistically, people will always more likely go for package 2. And the higher item, about 10% will, and the lower item, about 10% will. If you have 3 packages, most people gravitate to item 2. If you have a fixed quote, people's natural inclinations is to actually negotiate down the price. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all looking for a bargain. And aren't you sick of giving people a bargain? Because that means that you're really bargaining out the quality of their work. And you want to provide great work because you want them to be happy and you want them to go on and tell everybody how amazing you are. These simple things, crafting his message that attracted his exact right customer, the technical business person through authority architecture, the pricing structure, the storytelling, and the way of communicating absolutely changed Derek's business. He went from struggling to make $27,000 or $12,000 and probably going back to a full-time job very shortly, to 2 weeks later, $40,000, 7 weeks later, $80,000. By the end of the year, $120,000 in 4 months. And by the end of the next year, just shy of $300,000. Now, I want to tell you all of the details about how I did this for Derek. So I would love it if you join me in the webinar that we have upcoming. But before we get to that, I want to show you a testimonial from Derek Lewis. Hear from him himself. I mean, he's going to share a story with you about his experience. And you guys are storytellers. So I hope you can understand that what I've just shared with you is the story of Derek Lewis and how it applies directly to you. So hear from Derek Lewis, hear what he has to say, and then come and join me in the webinar. I'd love to share with you more. Cheers.